Hello everybody, my name is Emma and I'm the Strategic Lead for Family Schools and Services Integration for Great Minds Together.
My name is Meg Walls and I'm the Social Work Director, Quality Assurance Lead and Safeguarding Officer for Great Minds Together.
We're going to talk to you today about a few things in relation to this project. So we are delivering a autism peer education project in partnership with NHS Health Education England. So the peer education project we are delivering is one of the first projects to be commissioned by Health Educational England that treats the family as the workforce around autistic people and everybody that cares for somebody who is autistic. So it could be in relation to a family member, it could be parent and carer, it could be a befriender or personal assistant or a small independent care provider. So anybody that's caring for someone who is autistic. The whole aim of the project is to prevent escalation of mental health needs, to prevent hospitalisation for autistic people. So it's very much about upskilling the team around the family, around knowledge in regards to autism, how to manage behaviours, how to implement strategies to de-escalate mental health needs and behaviours, and to make sure that the person has the relevant support they need by people who completely understand their needs fully. So there's a few things that we're going to cover off in our session, but overall on the peer education site, what you will find is a number of different videos from people from all sides of the table. So we've got parents, we've got autistic adults, we've got people who work in a school, SENCOs, people with expertise in autism itself, and people who deliver support to families. There's a wealth of knowledge from lots of different perspectives to hopefully deliver as much information as we can. In addition to those videos, we also have access to a CPD certification, which is we're in partnership with New Skills Academy, and that's the Autism Awareness CPD, and you can register for that and that will be sent to you completely free of charge. There's 11 modules, it's quite a few hours long, but it is online and you can kind of pick up the learning as and when. With regards to the videos that you see on the website, they are all inclusive, so there are options on there to have subtitles, magnification, and there's a little description under each video on how to do that. So what myself and Meg are going to talk to you about today is the variety of different things that you have access to as families and professionals, and that we think everybody should be aware of as a real centralised information centre on what is out there to support your knowledge and also practically support families and autistic people. So this is just a brief overview on this screen of what that's going to look like. So understanding autism, we know, and it's very common knowledge, that usually when there is a diagnosis of autism, that's usually the end of conversation, and the diagnosis is given and there's not really anything in place once that's happened. We want to change that by making sure this site is available to everybody across the country in order to have a wealth of knowledge of what's available in every single local authority. So one thing to remember when you're working with an autistic person or young person, or whether your child has just been diagnosed with autism, is that everybody is completely different. So, for example, can learn everything there is to know about autism as a condition, but that person is going to be completely unique. So there's going to be lots of different potential needs and additional needs, complex needs. Some have learning disabilities, some people don't, some people are very high functioning. So it's understanding always the person at the forefront that you are caring for and their individuality. And that's really important to always remember. Some people have different traits of different conditions. So the people who know them the best are their parents and family members, and it is really important that you do treat those parents, carers and family members as part of the workforce, because they will know the ins and outs of everything to do with that person's needs and how to best fulfill those needs and support them. And also the mental health impacts. Now we are going to go on to this a little bit later in the presentation, but the mental health that comes alongside is increasing. I know you've done a lot of research on this, haven't you, Meg?
Yeah, I think one of the concerns really is that a lot of people can often mask how they're feeling. They will often try to fit in with others, or may feel that they're different to others, and that's quite difficult to deal with, really. And actually, it may be that it's too much emotion to deal with, and it's that input that means that somebody can then struggle. But mental health is a significant factor, really, and it's a very real risk, and the risk of suicide is very high. And you know, that's not something pleasant to think about, but that's the reality, and that's why projects such as this are so important in understanding how we can best support people and how we can promote mental health.
So just to talk a little bit around the financial support that is available to families. So obviously autism is a spectrum, and there's lots of different types of families in different areas, different environmental factors to consider. But to just have an overview of everything that is available. And, you know, a lot of people aren't aware of things like short breaks, for example. We come across a lot of families, don't we, where they've never heard of short breaks, they don't know what it is, and there's probably a lot more information that we're going to deliver along the same, where people aren't aware it's out there. And it's about creating that awareness. And if you're a professional working with a family, it's really important that you familiarise yourself with what's available in your area, how the system works, what the local authority promote, what available universal services there are in the area, what charities are that can help support both financially and practically. So if you're a small independent care provider, for example, or if you're allocated as somebody as a personal assistant where the family are paying for your support through their personal health budget or a personal education budget, for example, it's just making sure that you are completely aware of what is available to that family, ensuring that they've got the best possible support. In addition to that, there is another video on here from one of the QDoc's clinical psychologist, and she's going to be doing a lot of talk around ensuring that you've got the right supervision if you are a small independent care provider, or if you are a personal assistant and you don't necessarily have a wealth of knowledge in this area, but you know the family and you know the person, so you're the right person and best placed person to support that. So it's just worth having a look at that video, because it is just about seeking the right supervision, but as well as extending your knowledge to what's available. So whilst you are tasked to support the person, it's really important to extend that support to the family, because autism affects everybody, and financially can be really strained on some families, specifically where the needs are very significant. So DLA, disability living allowance, is just moving over to PIP, which is the personal independent payment. So it's looking at supporting families with those forms, making sure they're on the right level, they've got the right level of finance. There's also carers allowance that you can apply for if you aren't sure how to do that application, or if you don't know anybody who is supporting with applications. They are very long applications, very detailed, very complicated. Citizens Advice do help with those applications, so you can refer families to them. You've also got a short break. So every area of the country, the local authority has a short breaks department. Now, that obviously doesn't say what it does on the tin. So a lot of people don't know what that is and what that means, and understanding the remit around short breaks also is can be quite complex, because every local authority is so completely different. So it's just familiarising yourself with the requirements for short breaks. And that's, some local authorities have activities running for families to take the child, or the carers to take the children to the provision. And there are others where they provide a level of respite. So it just completely depends on what's available in the area. Also for adults, there are a level of respite support as well through social care. So it's worth linking with the social worker to understand what availability is in your area, whether it's an adult social worker, a disability social worker, or a children's social worker. They should have a level of understanding working in the local authority of what's available. So some you can the people can go to them and stay there for a length of time, a few hours a day. Sometimes there's overnight respite. So it's really worth speaking to your local authority team and understanding what short breaks provision there are and what other respite provisions there are for adults as well. Everybody is entitled to personal education budget, personal health budget. It's worth doing some research around those and what that looks like. That's where the local authority pay the families directly to support and then commission their own support services like personal assistance, befrienders, support with education if the education provision isn't right for somebody with autism or a learning disability to attend. And then you've also got the family fund, which is worth looking into because they can provide a level of funding where families are struggling financially. So they're the kind of the main areas around financial support that we would suggest that you familiarise yourself and have a Google and look to see what's available in your particular local authority. So emotional support is one of the top priorities when you are caring for somebody. First and foremost for yourself. It very much the term put your own gas mask on first. You have to make sure you're okay in order to make sure the person you're caring for is okay. So making sure that you are available to them emotionally, that you are looking after your own mental health, and then ensuring they have the relevant emotional support.
I think one of the important things to say, you know, often we're all guilty of this, aren't we, in terms of emotional support for ourselves as parents and carers. Oh, well, I don't have time to do this. And like what Emma said, it's really important because actually if we're really struggling, then we can't be there for the person that we're caring for. And actually that's different for everybody. You know, not everybody's got the luxury of having maybe childcare in place to be able to have that physical being able to get away and have some headspace for yourself. So you may have to recreate that in a space in your house, whether that's having a bath, whether that's doing some positive affirmations, whether that's listening to a podcast, whatever that looks like for you. And the same for the young people and adults really that you're supporting, because actually they are individuals with their own personalities, with their own likes and dislikes. So it's just understanding what that looks like for them. And I think a lot of people worry that you know, if they're engaging in activities that are repetitive, well, actually I shouldn't encourage that then because they've watched that movie for the 50th time over the last 3 days. But there's a familiarity in that, and it's quite calming, isn't it? In terms of emotional support for young people, one of the things is looking at actually who else is out there who's got that relationship with that young person, whether that's somebody at school, whether it's somebody within the wider family, whether it's a formal mentor system like what we have in place. So it's just looking at the emotional support and what works for that individual young person.
Yeah, and it's looking at where you can get your emotional support from. So there are lots of different organisations that provide support for mental health. You've got Mind, obviously Crisis Point, you've got the Samaritans. There's also lots of really amazing local charities in every area. So again, just having a look, social media is a really great place to look for those things. And there's lots of groups, local groups. So you've kind of got your local community groups that you can ask what's available in the communities. And there's lots of parent-led groups as well on there, specifically in relation to families that have children with autism, also for adults with autism, and for we are just launching a new community Facebook group as well, which will be on this website, just in regards to people who are caring for people with autism. So for instance, befrienders, personal assistants and independent care providers. So there is going to be a wealth of support on social media. It's worth looking at. Facebook's probably your best place to look for those kind of support networks. And there's so many people on there that are happy to share their experiences, and where people have struggled in the past, there's loads of people out there that want to provide that level of support for families so that they don't go through what they went through. So it's a really good place to look. One of the things that we promote a lot of is mindfulness. And if you haven't ever heard of mindfulness before, again, take yourself away from this video, go and have a Google. There's lots of information out there about it right now. I do mindfulness with my own children, specifically one of my children that really struggles with day-to-day life. Sometimes mindfulness is really, really helpful. So it's just about understanding what we're grateful for, thinking about in the moment, and not really kind of looking at everything as a whole. You know, lots of things are going on in our life all the time, not just for people with autism, for everybody in general, especially you if you're caring for somebody with autism. So it's just about, rather than sort of looking as an overview of how much is going on and everything that we're doing, it's about really looking in the moment and what's needed of us right now, rather than being overwhelmed by all of that accumulated stress. So definitely look into that. We can support with that as well as an organisation. So if you do want to know a bit more about mindfulness, you know, feel free to get in touch with us. Our details are on the site. So team around the family. So a team around the family is also known as TAF. There's also team around the child, TAC. You may know about this already, you may not have any idea what this is at all. So what it consists of is everybody that's working around a family where there is a person with additional needs. So that could be school, it could be the workplace of a person, it could be social care, social worker, it could be somebody who you have appointed to support the family, it could be an external agency, yourself, parent carers, it could be anybody. So pulling all of that together, and there can be regular meetings. You can request, whether you are somebody as a care provider supporting a family with autism, or whether you are a parent or carer, you can specifically request for a team around the family meeting, pulling all professionals together as well. That doesn't have to be anybody specific that requests that.
I think that's often the misconception, isn't it, that there needs to be a level of social care involvement for there to be regular coordinated meetings, and that's not the case at all. More often than not, team around the family meetings take place without a social worker being present, and actually it's just that opportunity for everybody to be in the same place, working together to give the young person or the adult a voice, to be part of that meeting as well, and to look at what's going well for them. And actually, are there any actions, and what needs to happen, and when's that going to be done by? And actually, there's a real level of accountability there, because if everybody's meeting again in a couple of weeks and going through, well, who's doing what and where's this up to, it's often really helpful to be able to push things forward. So we're big believers in arranging formal meetings. And I mean, when we say formal, it can be done online, virtually like this. It's often easier to get lots of different people in different places in one place when you do things virtually. That may be best for your young person or your adult, might be the opposite. But it's just thinking about how they can creatively be engaged in that meeting, and how they can have a voice. And, you know, it might be a voice recording, it might be they want to share a drawing, but the team around the family meetings need to be, you know, the central point of that is the person who's important, and all of the family and all the professionals working together to come up with an appropriate plan.
Yeah, and I think it's just really helpful to, especially if you have somebody who you feel that their mental health is escalating, or you're a bit concerned about the mental health, and, you know, you can get health involved in that meeting as well. People who are working as professionals around the family may know of certain referral processes that you may not be aware of, in order to get the relevant support in place before that does get to a point of crisis. So it's definitely beneficial for that to be in place, and we would suggest anybody to coordinate that and instigate those meetings.
I think particularly because, you know, we all know early intervention is key, isn't it? And when we look at outcomes, as research to suggest that the more support that's put in place early on, the more likely it is that we're going to have positive outcomes. And doing team around the family meetings where issues may just be raising, or where there's more evidence, it's really good to start that process. I think often parents and carers will tell us, well, that behaviour is just seen at home, it's not seen at school, so I've not shared my concerns with school. And often families are then in crisis point before that's shared. And I think it's just really key, in that link with early intervention that really helps with that side of things, and getting onto assessment pathways where appropriate.
So we're going to talk to you now about online resources that are available. There's a wealth of resources, especially as a result of the pandemic, more so than there ever has been before, across the internet, on various different resources to support with mental health, and also with de-escalation techniques and emotional well-being. We've tried to collate as many as possible and put them on our website, under the resources and downloads page. So there's lots of different links on there. Feel free to go and have a look, all of them free. We've done some of our own resources as well. So there's workbooks and activity sheets and things on there. Chatter Pack is something to definitely be aware of. Again, loads of fantastic resources, links to other resources as well on that site, really worth having a look at. And we've also uncovered more recently, actually, he'sextraordinary.com, and there's a wealth of de-escalation techniques on there, but there's a wealth of information on there. It's really worth having a look at that site. It's very obvious a lot of time and energy has gone into that site, and it's really interesting read. One thing that a lot of people tend to watch is TED Talks. You may or may not have heard of these, but a lot of them are very inspirational talks delivered by people with autism. There's lots of different subjects on TED, and it's worth having a look on YouTube. We will share a link to one of their talks on our on this website, so you can have a look and then navigate and maybe subscribe to TED, because there's some really good information on there. The Open University have recently launched some free online courses for everybody as a result of the pandemic, so go and have a look at that. And then if you aren't already aware, websites like IPSIA, SOSN and NASN, the National Association for Special Educational Needs, are worth having a look at. There's lots of resources on those websites, but you also get a level of free advice, and there's an element of free legal advice on there as well if you're struggling, particularly surrounding education. In addition, Skills Builder are in the process of building a framework, and it really is fantastic. You can navigate through, you can sign up and have it as a user. There's lots of different of the essential skills. They've got a specific SEND element of that framework, so go and have a look at the Skills Builder framework as well. We use that a lot with our mentors and support for families. So mental health and autism, we did touch on this briefly earlier on in the presentation, but one of the reasons that we're doing this project is to support people with autism with their mental health to prevent hospitalisation. And the way we're doing that is in order to educate people around the people who are caring for people, but also making use of the families as the workforce. And like we said earlier, you know, the people who know the person with autism the best are the family members, the parents and the carers. And we are trying to encourage professionals and care providers to make use of that knowledge and the people around the family as best they can. Now, there's a misconception that people don't feel emotion, but that's actually not the case. You know, a lot of the time they feel emotion to an extreme, particularly children, where they haven't yet learned to be able to display their emotion in a way that, you know, is supportive of their social emotional needs. And that's where you see a lot of the time in young children quite extreme behaviours, quite extreme reactions, because they haven't yet learned how to express their emotion. So there are a lot of videos on here from people who experience this daily, and there's a wealth of knowledge across the site on how to manage that, how to implement strategies that are helpful in supporting the mental health. Anxiety and depression are very prevalent. The statistics around that are very high. And the reason for that is, if you think about it, a lot of people have a lot more to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Somebody described it once as living in a world where nobody else knows the rules but you. Understanding how to support people with their mental health and understanding anxiety and depression is kind of where you start.
I think anxiety and depression, a lot of that is connected to a feeling of standing out, of stigma, of feeling shamed, of having to manage behaviours that help that individual. So stimming behaviours, particularly that you feel, you know, in social settings that children are conditioned often from a young age, you know, stimming, hand flapping, actually, why are you doing that? Well, that's really helpful for that person. But as a society, we expect people to fit in. And like Emma said before, that actually we should adapt our society to the individual needs of the person and not the other way around.
Absolutely. One of the things that I'm really passionate about as well is listening to understand. So when you're having conversations with people, especially in a school setting, for example, a lot of the time, you know, there's a back and forward conversation, and it looks like people are listening to what you're saying, but actually they're listening in order to say what they're going to say next and how they're going to respond. One of the important things as an adult or somebody caring for somebody is listen to understand them as an individual, and understand what their needs are, understand the needs behind the behaviour rather than looking to sanction the behaviour first.
The CPD course is very detailed and goes into a lot of information relating to statistics, associated conditions relating to autism or ASD, the changes in the diagnostic assessments that were brought in 2013, and more information in relation to mental health.
So as part of this programme, we are going to be having a on-call support service. So the number is on the screen. It's going to be open from Monday to Sunday, so 7 days a week from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. If you are working with a family, or you are a parent or carer, or you are somebody with autism yourself, you're very welcome to phone that number at any time during those hours, and there'll be a member of the team on call to support in the best way we can, or direct you into somewhere that can give you support that you need.
I think sometimes it is about signposting, but often it's just about having that listening ear, that in crisis, somebody that's able to give you those strategies to you know, if it's deep breathing with you on the phone, whatever it is that you need in that moment, then that's what we're here for.
So signposting, again, a few things on here, dependent on who you are watching this video. You may or may not know about all of this. You may be fully familiar with everything on this list. You may not know what any of it is. So SENDIAS is the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Information, Advice and Support Service, or it's sometimes known as IAS in certain local authorities. Every local authority has IAS. It's there to help you in regards to anything to do with special educational needs and disabilities, lots to do with education, any support. They understand education and social care. And a lot of the teams across the country in SENDIAS are absolutely fantastic. The knowledge is second to none, and it's a completely free service. So just do a Google, look on your local authority website, and there'll be a number for your local SENDIAS for you to call. Also, the local offer, again, every local authority has a local offer. Similar to short breaks, it doesn't say what it does on the tin, so it's not very obvious of what it is, but it is a list of various different agencies in your area, universal services, charities, companies, organisations that can provide a level of support to you and your family, or the family that you're working with. Don't always bank on that being everything in your area, because a lot of the time there's a lot not on the local offer that is available in your area too. So just keep an eye out on a wider range, you know, like I said before, local Facebook community groups. People who are kind of going through this themselves are the best people to probably signpost you as well. We touched on short breaks before, the personal budgets and the family fund, having access to all of those. Also, social care, there's quite a stigma around social care. You know, it's kind of got to a point where social care is really attached to people having the view that it just relates to safeguarding concerns, or it relates to the fact that if you've got a social worker, it means that you're not a very good parent. What social care is actually, and was originally created to be there for, is social care. You know, it's there for you, to support you in a supportive way. Social workers are there to help you, to understand if you are struggling, or if the family that you're working with is struggling, and what support is out there to help them. It should be delivered in a supportive way. There is a disability team in every social care department in every local authority. Again, have a look at the local authority's criteria. Now, there is a little bit of controversy around this, in the sense that there is a criteria on the SEND Code of Practice, and then there is criteria that local authorities put on their website to qualify for a disability social worker, and they don't quite add up in some local authorities. But do query that and do question that. Phone our advice service, phone SENDIAS, you know, speak to somebody in your local authority to understand what that looks like. But also, your social care team should have an understanding of what's available to your family, or the family that you're working with, in regards to respite support. Again, Some local authorities have a wealth of support available. It depends on the area. Some hardly anything at all, and you really do need to extend that search more locally. So have a look at that and see what social care can provide to you in a supportive way for your family. Again, keeping in touch with school. School usually have quite a lot of really extensive knowledge. Your Senko, people within the school who, you know, may be autism specialists, especially if there's a resource base or specialist provision. Speak to school, you know, tap into that resource really. They've got a lot of knowledge, they've done a lot of studying, especially where it's specialist provision.
Also make sure that your doctor is aware. There is a learning disabilities register, and everybody who has a diagnosis of autism or other learning difficulties and disabilities is entitled to an annual healthcare check. So that's, you know, that's some one-on-one time where you can go with the GP and discuss everything related to the health needs and other needs of the young person or the adult. Not everybody's aware of that and that entitlement. So that's really important. So make sure you make that inquiry with your GP.
And it's just being mindful that you may have other more complex needs that are associated. And again, it really does kind of go into detail on this on the CPD course around autism awareness and what other needs are associated with autism quite commonly. So please familiarise yourself with those, and remember that it's not about the condition, it's about the person and the uniqueness of that person and what their individual needs are. You know, we can, a lot of the time, there's lots of meetings going on, lots of professionals having conversations and people viewing, you know, a person as a collection of diagnoses and what strategies that, you know, can we use to support this person. Actually, they are a person and they should be treated as such. And it's understanding that unique person and what they need. So you can do all the study in the world. We can, you know, deliver as much information as possible. But one of the most important things that I think we'd like to get across really is understanding the uniqueness of every individual person and what they need from you, not just what it says that you need to deliver on courses and programs and training. So it's listening to people who live that world, who live that life, and taking, you know, a lot of information from sources like that are extremely reliable, and a lot of those people will say the same thing. Also having access to your local CAM service and health services as well, and keeping in touch with them and just being aware of what is available in your local area in relation to health. So there's a few websites on here. A thank you to everybody who is contributed to this programme. It is something that we're going to be expanding. If you would like to get involved in this programme and you think that there's something that you can bring to this programme, a level of knowledge, or if you'd like to deliver a video just like this or just a video talking about your experiences, then feel free to get in touch. We are open to working with anybody that can better the support, understanding and awareness, supporting their mental health.
So for anybody who would like to register for this CPD online course, the registration button is below the videos, and we're also going to be doing some live events, so with all the speakers on all the videos, and that way you get to choose who you'd like to listen to. So have a look, book online, and we look forward to seeing you soon.